Welcome back to the Patio Pondering Podcast, where we're after clear thinking for complex agriculture. Guess what, folks? Another one of my FarmHouse brothers joins us today as we talk about life, agriculture, and how we both ended up where we ended up. Today I have Dr. Travis Park, formerly of Trafalgar, Indiana, now of North Carolina State University. Welcome, Travis.
Hey, thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
You're in the list of Brian Engelking, Mark Vors, Jim Bishop, and now you.
Wow. 2 out of 3 ain't bad then.
Rarefied company, I would say.
I'd say so. No, those are good folks to be associated with. I'd take that any day.
I would agree on at least 2 of them.
Yeah.
The listeners can decide on which 2. Travis and I go back to FarmHouse at 1028 State Street in Purdue when he was a pledge, and neither one of us thought we would become PhDs. Yet here we are, 2 PhDs talking. Travis, can you talk to us how you made the transition from Trafalgar to Purdue and how you ended up at North Carolina State?
Yeah. So, at the time we were growing up, and the longer I live, the more I have an appreciation for folks like us that I think withstood agriculture when agriculture wasn't cool there in the mid to late 80s through that 80s farm crisis. That as I work more on the national level with FFA and folks in agriculture, there's just a cadre of us who survived the 80s there in agriculture. And so knowing I wanted to work in agriculture and growing up in Indiana, there was only one choice for a university, and that was Purdue. And unlike students today, and maybe I don't know what you did, Jim, but gosh, I just applied to one place, and it was Purdue, and I was going to Purdue or nowhere else. And luckily at that time, they were in need of students, so they accepted folks like us. But I finished up at Purdue and actually had 2 job offers that fall. One was with the old Ciba-Geigy chemical company, and that was a pretty good job for an undergrad. And then a friend of mine called and said she was going to quit teaching up at Tri-County High School, quit teaching ag there north of Lafayette, and she needed someone to apply for the job. And I was the only graduate in December there. So I went and applied and ended up, I liked the principal and the superintendent and knew a lot of the people there in the Tri-County area. The Doc Burton, was Scott and Lance Burton's dad. He was on the advisory committee and the Dimmerly clan and that kind of thing. And so I ended up teaching there for 5.5 years. Enjoyed it.
Don't forget about the most famous Tri-County graduate, valedictorian of the class of 1989.
Yes.
Tim Matthew.
Yeah. They farmed right there outside of Wolcott. So I, through FarmHouse had several connections in Purdue with the community. So yeah. Started teaching ag there and was just blessed with incredible students and incredible community support. And then our program was recognized as one of the top in the nation. And so in attending the National Ag Teachers Conference, connected with an old friend in the hotel lobby, and they made another connection to a faculty member at the University of Florida. And those folks chatted with us during the conference and asked if we were interested in pursuing a PhD and in ag education. I'd accomplished a lot, or with our program, the kids had accomplished a lot there at Tri-County. So I was ready for some new challenges. And honestly, Gainesville, Florida sounded a little more exciting than Wolcott, Indiana. For, my wife, Lacey, and I were newlyweds and living 5-6 miles away from her parents, so we could get away from the in-laws and we could go to Florida. So yeah, went to the University of Florida and got a PhD, and since then have worked 8 years at Cornell, and then now this is year 13 at NC State. So it's been, ag education has treated me well, whether it's teaching high school agriculture or working here at the university in preparing future teachers of agriculture.
And this is FFA week, and this is unintentional. Just happened that we are recording at FFA week. And for listener understanding, I was not an FFA member. I went to a suburban high school that didn't have it. I was adopted by Woodland High School FFA, and Mr. Ron Hefty. He allowed me to go on some soil judging and some of those trips, but I'm going to jump into it.
Yeah.
Because I've got a friend whose mother was in 4-H with me. Her son went to Purdue and then went in ag ed, and he lasted 2 years.
Okay.
And it wasn't FFA, it was students. And students being a pain in the ass, to be blunt.
Yeah.
And it was the bad seeds that made it tough for him, even though he was really successful in FFA. I mean, he ran for state office, being really successful. What are you seeing with your students as you prepare them to go to the classroom for the rigors of a high school class in 2026?
Yeah, that's the funny thing about student teaching is it's a fantastic internship where our students, because they're preparing to teach about agriculture, will teach themselves a lot of agriculture content, based on the coursework here at the university. They have to work, communicate, and be organized in their thoughts all day long. And then they don't get to choose which of those students walk through their door for the most part. So they get a cross-section of our world walking into their classroom every day. And some of those kids are fantastic and really interested in agriculture. And some of them are new to agriculture. Maybe, hopefully their interest is piqued by their ag teacher. And then there's some that probably are in there causing trouble. So, and we can't shield our student teachers from any of that. We just can't. It's a real internship. And so they have to deal with being prepared every day. And when the bell rings, it's game on, and then working with all kinds of students and really the parents. So what we try to tell our teachers is, you're going to start off feeling pretty high about teaching, and then there's kind of a crash to the reality. For me, even when I walked into the classroom, day one, I was pretty cool because I was the new ag teacher. But by about noon, word got out that what I was about, I guess, I don't know. And then the cool factor started fading quite a bit. And, that first couple of months, it was tough. I had students of mine, cuss me out, do donuts in the school yard, try to burn all kinds of things down in the shop, and just chaos. And so I had to create, a culture of discipline, and some of it's weeding out students, some of it's negotiating with students to not burn the place down that we're going to learn. And, when you're trying to create all this chaos, that just takes away from what really the fun we can have in class. And so you've got to weather that storm. And somewhat is one of my principles says, it'll take a few years till you graduate some of the bad seeds out of your program. But eventually, if you stick to your guns, you're going to have the kind of kids that want to work with you and help you build a program. And so that's what I found. I had great kids all along. I had some that really challenged me. And I'll tell you this, Jim, I had Purdue basketball tickets and when I started, right? And I started middle January as a teacher, and late January, maybe 2 weeks in, went to a Purdue basketball game, looked across the next section over and saw two of my students, a junior and a freshman, in the next section over. So during halftime, we kind of made eye contact and met down on the concourse of Mackey Arena there. And I said, "Hey guys, enjoying the game?" Something like that. The freshmen, their brains are really still developing, looked at me and said, "Park, I got 2 words for you." And I said, "Yeah, what's that?" And he goes, "F you." And I'm like, I said, "Well, guys, enjoy the rest of your game," and I didn't know what to do. He kind of had a little bit of a reputation. The next morning I went into the school and I entered the school, through my ag shop. And in the twilight of the shop, I could see there was someone sitting outside my office door, and they were sitting on the floor, knees pulled up, head kind of buried in their arms. And I got closer, I could tell that they were crying. I'm like, "Wow, what is this?" And as I got closer, the kid looked up. It was the freshman who cussed me out the night before. And what I didn't know is that after he said that, the junior laid into him and chewed him out and said, "You can't do this. This is our last chance to have an ag teacher. If you run him off, we're not getting another one." So this kid was crying about that. He apologized. He was just a blubbering mess. I said, well, make sure this doesn't happen again, kind of a thing. He continued to cause a little bit of trouble, but that same student, after he graduated high school, I was remodeling an old farmhouse. He spent a couple of evenings after he got off work, came over to the house and helped me tear plaster off the walls of my house so I could redo the house, right? When he graduated at the county fair, I was walking down one of the driveways at the White County Fair, and there was an elderly woman approaching me, and she had, the sunglasses over the top of her glasses. And so I couldn't tell I didn't know who it was, but I kind of moved to the left, and to let her go past me, she moved, to her right. So we were kind of playing chicken going down, the driveway, and all of a sudden she reaches up and gives me a hug. Jim, I didn't know who this woman was.
Oh, no.
Yeah, she gives me a hug, and she's got tears in her eyes. And she goes, Mr. Park, I just want to thank you so much. I'm like, ma'am, I'm sorry. I don't know who you are. She goes, I didn't think you did. She goes, I'm this freshman's, who's now just graduated as senior. I'm his grandmother. And I just want to tell you that my husband and I, his grandfather and I, thank you so much that if it wasn't for you and FFA, we're not sure he'd ever graduated high school. So all that to say is you got to stick with these kids a little bit, and they'll make it. Hopefully they all grow out of their teenage years. I'm certainly thankful people don't hold what I did as a teenager against me, and ag teachers kind of got to weather that storm as well.
I use the term liberal education, and that raises some ears. Like, liberal, what are you talking about? Well, I mean liberal isn't small L.
Yeah.
And small L as in liberal, as you've been taught through education, it's the sciences, it's the arts, it's a well-rounded education. We think back to the forefathers that started our country. Their education included languages, and it included philosophy, and liberal in a all-encompassing sense. Mm-hmm. And I think that FFA, marching band, and those courses in a high school that are beyond reading, writing, and arithmetic that make a liberal education do two things. One, it puts a teacher in a position where they can really impact somebody's life, as you just illustrated. And two, it really sets our students up for success because they're resilient because of what they do in the marching band room or in the choir room or in the shop, whether it's welding or animal science. Would you agree with that?
I do. I think those extra courses that are electives in the school give meaning to the education. There's a lot of research that says an additional math class on top of additional math class, not picking on math, but, for a kid that struggles in math, more math doesn't actually help them learn math. What helps a student learn math is the application of math by, calculating feed rations in ag class or learning, the fractions that are the beats in music, that kind of thing. So, and furthermore, it's the band classes and the ag and the art and those electives, that are meaningful to a student. And so my freshman there, and I can give you, we're not going to name names here, but I can think of many other students that stuck with school and because of an ag class or a band class. It was their fun class. And if they could just make it through whatever other class to get to that elective, that fun class, they would do that. So, yeah, we used FFA a lot of times, to go to attend the national FFA convention or participate in any of the out-of-school events. You had to have a C average or higher. We were just like the athletics. In order to participate, you had to have a certain GPA. And that students met that mark. And so it helped in that way incentivize better study habits and better grades. I like the liberal approach. It's all of it. Math and science, English, social studies, those are absolutely necessary. But so too are these other electives that give added meaning and value to school.
Well, I think the term that I like to use with students and the people that are successful is resiliency.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of the challenges that we get in the FFA shop and on the marching band, in the choir room, in the pottery class, they add us resiliency because it's not all A plus B equals C.
No. And sometimes there's practices after school or events on weekends with those band or FFA. And so you got to figure out how to get your other work done so that you can go do those things, and other work at school and other work at home. And, and that's life. You juggle multiple commitments and prioritize your time. So that builds resiliency. So too is, it's sort of frustrating sometimes to see a good kid in FFA work real hard and practice a speech or demonstration or livestock judging for months and go to one contest, and there's only one or two spots that place high enough that they can advance to the next level. And you know what? They got to figure out how to either prepare to be in one of those two spots, or you know what? If they're in third and just missed the cutoff, that's life. Prepare better next time. Not everybody can win everything all the time.
I read an article on LinkedIn, I think, the other day that talked about the lack of success with people that had success in high school, or the ones that had an easy time in high school because they were just smart.
Oh, yeah.
I have classmates that ran into this, that it wasn't easy and they didn't have the resiliency. And here we have Dr. Smith and Dr. Park, and it should have been these other people because they were the ones that were so smart in high school.
Yeah, you were smarter than I was in college.
I don't know about that.
I know. I did pretty well in high school, and it was fairly easy. I balanced some things with FFA, but gosh, I got to Purdue, and I remember that chemistry class, walking in, talking to the professor after the first exam, and I said, I got to keep my grades up. I got a scholarship, and I need at least a B in this class. And he said, "What'd you get on the first exam?" And I told him. He just laughed. He said, "You're not getting a B in this chemistry class." Yeah. And then you got to figure out, okay, what's the best I can do? I worked phenomenally hard to get a C in that class. And, some of my fraternity brothers in study groups and that, they helped teach me enough chemistry to at least pass the class. But yeah.
I don't share my transcript very regularly because those first two semesters.
Yeah.
In retrospect, Chem 111 and Bio 108 should have been easy freaking classes, but we chose to make it difficult, didn't we?
Yeah. I did a little better in biology. That Martha Chiskin was a fantastic professor. Chemistry was my downfall. Chemistry and calculus. Those, I was glad to get those out of the way and move on from those experiences.
What is your class load at North Carolina State? I mean, what are you doing to prepare people for the classroom?
Yeah, so we've got, I don't know, one of the bigger, maybe one of the top 5 or 7, by number of graduates in ag education. We've got one of the larger programs in the country. And so we run, it'd be nice to creep up. Right before COVID, we were about ready to go over 100 ag ed students in the program. And I hope with a good incoming class this year, we might be back there again. So anyway, 85 to 100 ag ed students. And so we've got 4 ag ed professors and 1 instructor. And we prepare them to work with FFA chapters and do work-based and experiential learning, the FFA projects, the SAE projects at home, and then, deliver instruction in classrooms. And more and more ag programs across our state and really across the nation, it's not uncommon that most ag programs operate a greenhouse. So students need to know how to operate a greenhouse on campus. Lots of programs are adding animal facilities, either short-term or year-round. And so everything from chickens to goats to cattle on campus, bees, that kind of thing, whatever they can manage. And then our big an area of interest across the country too is to try to find more and more agricultural technology and ag mechanics teachers. That's where we're really in high demand, is finding students who want to be teachers, who know how to saw a board, drill holes in material, weld steel together, break down an engine, put it back together, and get it to running again. On top of the cutting edge agriculture, right? And drones and sensors and those kinds of technologies as well.
The Purdue Ag Communication Department shut down. Did the Education Department get shut down too, or absorbed into other schools?
Ag Ed got pulled out, and last I knew, the administration was looking at how they house the Ag Ed major and the Ag Ed faculty. Yeah. State law there in Indiana said that you have to graduate a certain number of students, I think 15 per year, in order to maintain the program. And unfortunately, ag communications wasn't hitting the 15 mark, I guess.
So what does North Carolina State do to get to the number of students that you just talked about?
Well,
It's not just you, is it?
No, Jim. I'm the dead weight here in this program. We have, like I said, 4 other phenomenal faculty that are just world class, and so they're good. We're all a little bit different personalities, so we can attract a variety of students. But then we've got fantastic ag teachers across the state that will send us their best and brightest students to the college. North Carolina's a little unique. There's about 600 ag teachers in 375 programs across the state. Right about 47% of our college, the entire College of Agriculture, 47% of the undergraduates were FFA members in high school. So
wow.
The footprint of FFA and ag education in North Carolina is really, really pretty significant. And so that helps us attract ag teachers and ag education, ag teachers in North Carolina. The teacher pay is really low compared to other states, but ag teachers, almost all of them are on 12-month contracts here in the state, so they're paid through the summer, and that helps boost their salary. And so in a lot of our counties, an ag teacher is one of their income compared to the rest of the county, not even in education, but just the rest of the county, is pretty good, So that's helpful as well. But I think it's really the strength of our ag teachers, and then aside from myself, really fantastic faculty here in the college.
Thank you. Yes, we have 4 great professors and Dr. Park.
yeah. And then there's that guy. You ask them, they'll tell you the truth. They carry the water here, so.
Oh, yeah. They'll tell me the truth that you're the shining light of the program.
But it's a combination of, too, I think it's good. Ag education, ag communications, those are people-based sciences in agriculture, and there's an art to working with people. We're fortunate that in our program, of the 5 of us that work with ag ed, 3 of them are homegrown talent here in North Carolina, and there's 2 of us from the Midwest. So it's that combination that makes the difference as well, just the relationships.
You started with something in your introduction that I've carried with me, and I've shared as discussion points with some of my guests, particularly those that were a little older than me and you.
Yeah.
And that's the 80s farm crisis, and not so much the crisis, but the brain drain.
Yeah.
Because how many of our cohorts that are our age that went to Purdue in the late 80s, early 90s went to engineering, pharmacy, management, supervision, because their parents either told them, get the hell off the farm, or they were like, I ain't going to put up with this crap. I'm going to get out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm so glad we're not, you look at the farm economy where it is right now, we may be approaching, we probably are back in a similar situation there. The difference is in the 80s, right, there were a lot more farmers in communities. And today, with several episodes of consolidation, there's just kind of fewer of those folks and fewer of their kids in school. But yeah, a couple of years ago, I went back to my home high school to speak at the FFA banquet, and just amazed and impressed by the growth of the program. But what I really noticed is the students in the program, like their parents and their aunts and uncles were kids I graduated, or, they were adults now, but they were students that you and I would have graduated with in that same high school. And then, even throughout the county, and they're sending their kids to the ag program. And in so many cases, I was like, wait, your mom or dad or your aunt or uncle, whatever, the people I knew connected to you, they weren't in ag classes back in the day, just because of what you said. Get off the farm. This is not a good career for you. So I'm glad that agriculture has gotten to be cool again for students. And there's just tons of opportunities in the ag sector. Hopefully a lot of kids go back to farms and ranches and production ag operations, but there's plenty of opportunities outside of that. So yeah, that brain drain is real. And like I said, maybe it's just us living long enough, thankfully, but there's a lot of us out there who grew up through that farm crisis that are now in leadership positions, certainly in companies and governments. And part of that's just a function of living, but I think it's surviving in agriculture as well.
Well, I think there's a couple ways you could talk about that. One, the negative, hey, look at all the people that we lost. But the other one is, man, look what we've done with what we lost.
Yeah.
We got some good leaders in our industry. I disagree with a lot of them a lot of times, but we do have some good leaders.
Well, they're good folks. But yeah, you look at just our enrollment. Well, when we were in high school, or even when I graduated, there in the mid-90s, you too, schools were eliminating agriculture programs, right? And enrollment was declining. And then the ag education community changed the curriculum and changed some of the approaches to delivering agriculture classes. And since 92, 93, enrollment in ag classes have grown. Enrollment in FFA has grown across the nation. And, we wouldn't be ready for this farm crisis right now without, I think, good people going into agriculture, so that we've turned things around. That helps us as an industry, I think, be more resilient. If we continue that downward trajectory, with 100,000 students today instead of hopefully 1.1, maybe not quite, but over 1 million students in ag classes, that's pretty healthy. Not all of them will go into ag careers, but a lot of them will consider it.
Do you think the success of the ag program is because we lived through FFA transitioning from Future Farmers of America to FFA and making it more of a liberal agriculture education instead of a production?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Without a doubt, the transformation of ag education curriculum in the late 80s and early 90s has helped. I mean, if we were teaching just the production kids and just about production agriculture, our audience of students would be so limited that we wouldn't have ag programs in the public schools, right?
You'd have to send them out of state.
Yeah. I don't know where they would go. But when you teach food science classes, that's still agriculture. Or you have the greenhouse and you're teaching horticulture. You're still teaching the principles of growing plants and producing food there. Schools have added ag communications, ag leadership courses. We've expanded ag mechanics to be more embracive of current ag technology. And, if you're not growing, you're dying. And so we've had to grow and evolve this organization and our curriculum. And this last week, some FFA students, members here in North Carolina, we interviewed the National FFA president from 1965. And it was interesting. He said, at that time we were starting to discuss embracing more of the ag industry than just farming. And he said, it actually surprised me that it took FFA until 1988 to change its name. He goes, because in the mid 60s, all the discussions we had as students was about how do we not move away from farming, but add to ag careers and curriculum beyond that strictly production-based approach. So yeah, we've been evolving and we'll continue to evolve, but it allows us to grow. We add about 125 to 150 ag programs each year in schools all across the country. Some of them rural,
really,
a lot of them suburban and urban. Yeah. When you see someone out and about and what do you do? Or what's that FFA thing on your shirt? You tell them, they're like, well, I remember that back in high school. I'm just surprised that it's still around. Like, yeah, not only is it still around, we're growing. We are growing.
Was there an announcement at FFA National Convention of 1 million? Was it 1 million FFA members, or is that what was big?
For the last 2 years, we've been over 1 million FFA members. So 1,045,245.
Not that you're counting.
Not that I'm counting. Yeah. A lot of students we keep growing. We keep growing. And part of it is we've survived as ag teachers, and the ag ed community is really, really robust. The ag ed family teachers talk to one another, and they reach out and they help kids and they do good things for the community. But where a lot of other areas of career and technical education have lost teachers in schools, agriculture's picked those up because, if you had an industrial arts teacher, it'd be tough to find an industrial arts teacher, but there's some ag teachers out there who pretty handy in a shop, and so they can teach a couple industrial arts classes plus their ag classes. Yeah.
I'd go back to band because my youngest son's involved in band.
Yeah.
And I think back to when he goes to the ISMA ensemble and solo competition, you see a cadre of band directors and band teachers sitting around a table chatting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about pictures from FFA convention or pictures from like a judging contest or a horticulture contest. Those FFA instructors and teachers, they're sitting around chatting. Sure, they're talking about Purdue basketball and that, but at the same time, they're also saying, hey, what are you doing in this class? And it seems like those extracurricular elective forms of education just engender people that want to do more than just teach what's in the book.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Yeah, you see those teachers sitting around sharing their knowledge. I mean, when it comes to competitions, they want to prepare their students as best that they can. And, in the competition moment, they're coaches, they're competing. But, outside of that competitive environment, most teachers I know are willing to open the book and share what they know with another teacher, and have those conversations. But too, just that sharing of knowledge, not just in, our FFA competitions, but what are you doing in your shop class? I need some ideas on how to teach welding with a little tighter budget in the school. What do you have there? Or, gosh, how do you have honeybees on campus? Our county won't let us have bees. How do you manage that liability? So just sharing those ideas back and forth in that community builds relationships, and agriculture is the same way, right? I mean, farmers help farmers out. You hear those stories all the time. Somebody's in a farm accident or, something happens and farmers come together to help one another. That's what we experience too in ag education.
What are your children going to do?
Thanks for asking. I have my wife Lacey and I have 3 daughters. 2 of them are in college, so we don't go out to eat hardly at all anymore. We know what that feels like.
Yeah.
But one of them our oldest is here at NC State. She's majoring in horticulture with a concentration in landscape architecture. So she'll be interning with a local landscape architecture firm this summer. Our middle, being a middle child, I guess she wanted to. The 3 girls are best friends, but she needed to spread her wings a little bit on her own and get out from her older sister's shadow, I think. So she's out at Appalachian State in Boone, and she's a fermentation science major with a business minor. So she clearly got her mom's aptitude for chemistry, because I think fermentation science is a lot of chemistry.
That's baking on steroids.
Yeah, right. And then the youngest is a sophomore in high school here, and she does a combination of FFA. She's the chapter treasurer, and then also she's in the drama program. She does the directing and the sets and that kind of thing. So, yeah, kind of all over the place, but that makes life interesting, right?
Oh, yes, it does. So how are you able to engender a love of ag with your children when you're just a professor at NC State?
Yeah, we talk a lot of ag around the dinner table at home. And then the girls, their SAE project, right, for ag classes and FFA has been honeybees. So we have 8 beehives, and it would be a stretch to call us beekeepers. We're more bee havers. We have bees. Sometimes we have bees. Sometimes they take off and go other places. But we try to keep them happy, and then the girls sell the honey. I didn't know much about beekeeping. We've learned a lot, and I learned that they're really not that tame. They do take off and go somewhere better, I guess, from time to time. But a lot of people like honey. I didn't know how easy it was to sell honey, but for our quantity, we can get rid of the honey in about a week's period of time, and that's a couple 100 pounds of honey, which is not big stuff, but it's big for our neighborhood. Somehow bees don't. We live in a subdivision, and the bees are not considered livestock by the homeowners association, so we can have them.
There you go. you're experienced enough to know that when you read in the Date Ant catalog that Caucasians are calmer than Italians, that they're full of shit, they still sting.
Yeah. Yeah, they will, they'll get after you. My record is 25 stings one day, and, I'm a slow learner, but it didn't take me much time to learn it. I just get away, put the hive back together, and get out of there. It's a bad day.
That's
right.
I should wait for the clouds to come and not do this on a sunny day.
For sure.
Lesson learned. Well, I think what you illustrated with your daughters is one thing that sets ag apart. And that's we talk about what we do at the kitchen table. Mm-hmm. As farmers, as people in ag, and we share. And I can't see somebody that owns a dry clean business sitting down and saying, "Hey kids, guess what I did today? I found this new chemical and it takes out blood stains."
Yeah.
But you can see us talking about something in ag at the dinner table, and it could be gross. It could turn a normal person's stomach, but we talk about it. Yeah. I think that sets us apart.
Well, it does, and as more and more of the public have less and less connection, right, to the farm, there's a lot of gee whiz, interesting, maybe gross things that we can share about agriculture that are, interesting party conversations when you're out with friends or that kind of thing. So, yeah, and let alone around the dinner table, we do talk about it. Mm-hmm. Agriculture is pretty exciting, I think, and it's challenging, the weather and the markets and labor and all those other factors, but too, it's pretty darn interesting.
Yeah, it is. I got in trouble a decade ago or so, and somebody put on Snapchat a picture of a C-section that was successful. And they put it on as a celebration. Hey, I'm glad I could get this cow to the vet or whatever. And they had a picture of this huge monster calf, like 120 pounds, just massive calf. And blood's all over the place because you have blood and fluids from birth, and then you have blood from, you cut open the abdominal wall to get this calf out. And it was celebratory. Hey, save this calf. There was an ag advocate, influencer, that lambasted him. We got to be better at ag, and we got to be cleaner, and we'll offend people. And I got pissed off. I said, what the hell are you talking about? This is real life. This is no different than when a baby's born in a hospital. And in fact, we've probably seen worse on television than we did here. But they were adamant, we have to cleanse our image and we can't offend anybody. And man, if we go down that path, we're going to lose. I don't care what business you're in. If you try and cleanse your image, you're going to lose because the truth will come out.
Yeah, I think be truthful about the realities of agriculture, but people want to know and trust where their food comes from. And so in agriculture, I mean, food is important. All of us hopefully consume at least a meal a day and hopefully a couple. I know not everyone has that luxury necessarily, but it's important. It's something's going in our bodies. It makes a difference in our health. It makes a difference in how we feel. And so to know and trust farmers helps our agri-food system. So, yeah, to hide it makes maybe not a lot of sense, but, we've learned that, I think, in agriculture the last couple of decades with some of the science that came out, and we're becoming better communicators about the science and of agriculture and how that science can help both the producers, the farmers, and then also the public who consumes the food, and that it's safe and that we have a lot of choices for our food. And if this is a choice you don't want to make with your food dollars, okay, other people do. And so we want to continue to have choice in our food. Yeah.
So as we become and continue to be more international in agriculture, we just think what Brazil's done in our careers and how Europe has changed and become a consumer, not a producer. How are you or the program at North Carolina State preparing future ag teachers and ag technicians to understand ag beyond the borders of North Carolina and the borders of the United States?
Yeah, so some of our curriculum, ag policy courses and that help expose students to international agriculture and the impact of trade. But we're pretty blessed, I think, here in North Carolina in a lot of our products, or quite global in nature, whether it's cotton or sweet potatoes or, our beef industry, the poultry industry, the pork industry. All of those have global partners and global advocates, and those products are traded around the world. And so we try to bring in, representatives of those industries into our classes to help our future teachers and students across the college just understand the impact that North Carolina agriculture has, certainly within our state, $111 billion industry, but even those dollars and the impact goes well beyond our borders. And so here situated in the East Coast, lots of products go south to Florida, lots of products go up to the metro centers in the Northeast, but then a lot of those products are also traded internationally.
Well, you can hear some of the agenda-driven headlines that say, Brazilian soybeans hit Wilmington, North Carolina to feed Chinese pigs.
Yeah. There's always that. Show me time in history when agriculture wasn't global. I mean, you got to go a long time ago. As long as people have been traveling, they bring food with them. They market products around the globe. And so it is a global enterprise.
I think the frustrating part for us in ag is we are so nostalgia driven. I mean, we think about grandpa and we think about what we did and how we grew up. And then you balance that with, yeah, that was last year, but we still got to make stuff and compete with Brazil. And
yeah, it is a nostalgic industry. And yeah, in FFA, we still recite in a lot of our programs a creed, 5-paragraph FFA creed that was written, in the early 1930s. It still has relevance today, in some places, of course, but yeah, it's that nostalgia that it's a balance. We want to hold on to those traditions in agriculture and at the same time be progressive and forward thinking, because our world, our world is changing and its people are changing. So we have to change with them if we want to have.
Totally. There's a big discussion that I've been part of with some of the groups I'm in, and it's on the surface, it's you stupid farmers, you need to stop growing corn. The market says, go down to Granite and you got this Laffer curve that says this, and we're on the wrong side of it, so stop growing corn. And we need to have fewer big farms so that we can control this. And I push back against that because I'm not one of those big farmers. But I also think that ag is unique because, man alive, if you want to raise 50 acres of corn, knock yourself out, buddy. Now compare that with a car manufacturer. You want to make a car a year, it better be a really, really, really cool car.
Yeah.
And sell it for $1 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's independent operators. Our farmers enjoy a lot of independence. And so, yeah, I agree with you. The market says don't grow this or don't grow that. But then, it's not just that you put seeds in the ground in April and then harvest in September. Planning for those crops is multiple years in advance, to get your crop rotation. And, if you play the commodity markets a little bit, get all that lined up. So, yeah, it's not easy to pivot even with, necessarily a 50-acre farm or something.
Well, and when we sit in those classes in Granite, and it makes it look so simple, economics, the signal does this, and MC equals MR, and look at your ROI, and then look at the Laffer curve. Agriculture is biology, and biology is going to screw you whether you like it or not.
Yeah, we're the whims of the weather and pests, and I think we have a lot of nostalgia and tradition in agriculture because still it takes a lot of faith that when you put that seed in the ground or the calf on the ground, that there's a lot of time and a lot of factors going to play until we actually can see a harvest. And just because we harvest, there may not be a profit that goes along with it. There's no guarantee.
That's right. And we play in a commodity world, but we're not a commodity that's hard like copper. What happens if you shut down a copper mine? Big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mega investors out. But what happens if you shut down Mrs. McGillicuddy's 40 because you don't want to raise corn this year? Well, Mrs. McGillicuddy's going to be a little pissed off at you because she owes you her rent.
Yeah.
It's a little different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Travis, this has been great catching up. I say this in a lot of my interviews with friends, like, we should have done this a long time ago, but, life takes us different places. And like I said at the beginning, who would have thought in 1992, 91, when we were having fun at FarmHouse, that we would have sheepskin and PhDs behind our name? You just never know where it's going to end up.
For sure. And, but it's all the same. I still cherish and continue to just be impressed by the people we went to school with and the relationships that we have. There's a lot of great folks out there doing wonderful work. A lot of them in agriculture, a lot of them out. And man, life's about relationships.
Well, we talked about two connections before we started recording that were connections that ended up connecting differently than we thought they would in 1993.
Yeah. Well, of course, you didn't remember Dustin Kendall.
Dr. Dustin Kendall.
Dustin
of all
Kendall.
The people that you would not think would ever go to grad school, let alone graduate from Purdue.
I have to say no comment because actually at one point here at NC State, his oldest son was one of my advisees, and then Charmaine was working on some additional courses, his wife. And so, yeah, I would never have guessed that I'd be helping advise one of my college buddies' son and wife in some classes 4 states away from where we grew up.
I'm sure there are times that you and I thought, is he going to survive?
Well,
let alone thrive.
Same would be said, I guess, for any of us. But yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I'm glad I survived my teenage years, and people don't hold most of that against me. So,
although my sister seems to remember some of those, and she'll humble me every once in a while. But there's no pictures. True.
So grateful that we just had a couple of wall-mounted phones in the farmhouse. For
Gosh, making us feel old there.
Yeah.
Well, Travis, we end every one of my interviews with 5 questions, and my intention is to compile those and talk about commonalities and the coolest answer, but I'm not there yet.
Okay.
So those 5 questions are, the first one is, what is one lesson from ag you carry with you every day?
One lesson from ag that I carry every day is you reap what you sow. And really, you reap what you sow and nurture and pray over and agonize over, and hopefully it turns out.
Yeah, that's a good one. If you could have coffee with one historical figure in ag, who would it be?
Booker T. Washington.
Okay.
Fantastic agriculturist, doing what he did in the time that he did it. Man, I think that would be just a fascinating conversation, and probably a lot we could learn about working with folks today and finding solutions to real agricultural problems.
What is one quirky or unappreciated truth about ag more people should know?
One quirky truth about agriculture that more people should know. The one that comes to mind, this is so simple. When I was at Cornell, of course, a lot of focus is up there on the Finger Lakes and wine grapes, growing grapes. But in that industry, there's a period of maybe 3 or 4 days in the fall where that grape goes from just a grape on the vine to the sugars. I don't know what they do. Blend together and become a grape that we can make wine into. And if it's just a period of 4 or 5 days that the conditions have to be right leading up to it and then after. But in that time frame, lots of things happen inside the grape with the sugars and the chemistry to allow us to make wine. And that may be the same for a lot of our crops and products, that there's just there's a period of time that's relatively short that makes all the difference in the production of a crop. And so it might be tasseling time in corn and flower set in soybeans, that kind of thing. But there's usually just a real critical period that the factors have to be right.
Real critical period. I like that. What is your favorite ag-related tool, product, or innovation?
I think it's the milking machine and all the technology involved in the milking parlor. I can't imagine. I've never, as long as I've been involved in agriculture, never actually by hand milked a cow. But I just cannot imagine that being an easy or fun chore day in and day out in the heat of the summer and the cold of the winter. That is just takes time, energy, not easy. And that now we can, put cows on a carousel and milk them and be better for the animal and better for the product comes out of it. I think that's pretty interesting technology.
I am always surprised with how people came up with these ideas without a computer. And who was it that came up with the idea that we can make a pulsator in a milking machine, and that pulsator can suck and mimic a tongue?
Yeah.
They didn't go to ChatGPT and say, "Hey, can you tell me how we can mimic?"
Right.
I mean, it's just baffling that somebody was smart enough to do that. But milking machine's a great example. So the last question is, what is one small change that can make a big impact in ag's future?
I don't know if it was a small change. One change that I think we have to address in ag's future is just not the aging farmer demographic, but how do we transfer land to the next generation, and land and the wealth that comes with it to the next generation of people who want to till the ground and produce crops and livestock, because we can't keep losing farm ground, prime farm ground, to other commercial and housing development. And a lot of smart people are thinking about it, but I don't know how we do it. But if we've got to transfer that land so that it continues to be productive land and honors the generation that currently owns it, but gives opportunities to the generation that will follow.
Yeah. And I was on a group last week, and they were lamenting the fact of saying that Farmer John inherited ground, and he has two off-farm siblings, and the holdings are worth $2 million each, so $6 million worth of ground.
Yeah.
And the proposal was, well, Farmer John needs to just sell out so they each get $2 million. And I thought, okay, that's simple. You sell it, somebody buys it, you get $2 million.
Yeah.
But what is different between those three siblings owning $6 million worth of assets and a millionaire who owns $100 million worth of Ford stock? They own a portion of an asset. It happens to be $100 million, but just forget the number. But they own a portion of that asset. We don't go and tell them, you need to sell that so you got cash. But we tell farm owners, you need to sell it because you can do better if the money was in the market. Why don't we tell the Ford heir, you could do so much better if you took that $100 million and put it in the S&P instead of still owning Ford? I don't know why it's okay for us to minimize asset owning in ag and criticize people for not turning it into cash.
Yeah. Now, there's a lot of demographics that play, family demographics, the transfer of wealth. Yeah, like you say, longevity of the asset, how liquid it is.
And it's not simple. Every discussion we have, it just adds more to the confusion around assets and wealth transfer, transition in ag. It's not easy.
No, and it's, the tax implications of owning land are a little different than the tax implications of owning stock, right?
Yeah.
They're different. There's still an expense there, but somehow we have to figure that out. I know here in North Carolina, we're projected to be the state with the largest loss of farm ground of any state, and millions of acres lost over the next 10 years. And well, we'll pay as society, as people inhabiting this planet, we'll pay that price at some point in the future.
Well, we have a phenomenon in our area, just get off track a little bit, where we live in a big Amish community.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
In the off chance that an 80 sells, somebody will buy it. And then that 80 will turn into 2, 3, 4 Amish farmettes. They're still farm ground because they're taxed as a farm, but they're not producing. I mean, they'll have 2 horses on it, maybe some hay, but it's taken out of production. And we see that all the time. You could substitute 6,000 square foot house on a 20-acre lot as an estate. I mean, so we're sucking out ground, and you add in the phenomenon of the data centers and the solar. I mean, it's not easy, unfortunately.
No, and I like our advancements in agriculture, and I would have to be. I need information to be convinced. I'm not an ag economist, by training or anything else. I had a couple of ag econ classes there with Dr. Taylor and Dr. Bowl at Purdue, but you look at across the rural landscape too, as not to be too nostalgic, but as farms have consolidated, fewer people, working that land, it's taken a toll on our rural communities too. Many of them struggle to survive, compared to what they did 3-4 decades ago. Yeah. So where you got one guy or one family producing, it's still a family farm, 10,000 acres, big difference when that 10,000 was farmed and operated by 10 families instead of 1, We're not going to turn that around. But something I think it's a consequence of that consolidation, is just what it's done to some of our rural communities.
And maybe that is the weight around the neck of ag, and that weight is nostalgia that holds us back from advancing as much as we could. That's different. Yeah. Well, Travis, we should make a virtual Gray House basement, and we could have virtual beers, and we could talk about this with a bunch of people and still not have any answers.
One of the best things about college, wasn't it? Just sitting around talking about this kind of stuff that bright-eyed, eager college students are ready to solve the world's problems. Yeah, those are good days.
Crazy. Well, we've had a great conversation, Travis. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule in North Carolina to talk with us a little bit about your trajectory, how you made it from Indian Creek FFA to professorship at North Carolina State.
Thanks, Jim. Great to talk to you.
We need to do this more often with our cadre of friends.
That would be fun. Just have a big chat. That would be a good time.
It would be uncontrollable, I'm afraid.
Yeah, there may be some heavy editing to that work.